What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Mic Check Podcast. This is T Word, the People's Champ. I'm here with my co-host Q. You're now entering the booth. Thank you for joining us. We are going to talk about Anthony Joshua and a potential pairing with one of the better trainer of the year, Derrick James, and what it means for him going forward in the heavyweight division. So, Q, before we get started, what's good with you, bro?
Nothing much, man. Happy to be here. Another good day to talk boxing, talk sports as we love to do. We would be doing this off camera anyway, so it's always fun to get on and do what we love.
Especially on Twitter. Hey, them handles is right there. Follow them handles is right there.
Leave your feedback, man. Anything you'd like us to talk about that maybe we haven't talked enough about that we've overlooked, we love to do it. NBA, NFL, college sports, doesn't matter. We
do all that.
We got you. We
do all that. So without further delay, we're going to get right into it. So Anthony Joshua looks like he's lining up to fight Jermaine Franklin. And I want to give a short story about that. So I did a live solo live about a week and a half ago. And I was talking about potential opponents for AJ. And I mentioned Jermaine Franklin before anything was mentioned about them potentially fighting. And then that information comes out that's on deck. I think it's a really good fight for AJ because it's winnable. But it's also a really good fight for Franklin because I thought he put out a great showing in this last fight. Yeah. And this keeps him in the championship conversation because he's young enough to, even with the loss, make a difference in the heavyweight division. So I'm going to toss it to you, bro. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, man, I think it's a solid choice when you talk about a guy who's number one orthodox, right? All of the guys who've been rumored to be potential matches for AJ have all been southpaws. And that really doesn't make any sense at this point for him to fight any more southpaws voluntarily, just because, number one, people hate fighting southpaws when they're right-handed fighters. They just do. They don't want to volunteer for that. That's not something that they want to deal with if they don't have to. So we knew kind of going into this fight that the guys like Dempsey McKean, Otto Wallin, guys of that nature that are southpaw fighters, Zile Zhang, who's a matchroom fighter that fights out of China, all of those guys are southpaw. So there's not really any incentive for AJ to fight those guys in a fight that he's trying to get back into the winner's bracket. He's trying to get back in the winning column. But even more so in my mind, because none of the guys that he's potentially going to be facing down the line for what we call the big fights later this year, none of those guys are going to be southpaw fighters either, unless you want to consider Tyson Fury to be kind of a switch hitter. He's a guy that from time to time will fight out of the southpaw stance. So, but realistically, Jermaine Franklin is a top 15 guy. He's not a guy that has a big name, so it's not going to cost a lot of money to get him to travel. He just had a good showing against a domestic rival of Anthony Joshua when you talk about the fight you mentioned with Dillian Whyte. I thought that was a very, very close fight. In my opinion, Dillian Whyte won that fight in the back 4 rounds because I thought that Jermaine Franklin gas ran out in that fight. But he was doing really, really well the first 7 rounds of that fight. And I definitely had him up after 7, 4-3 at that point. But I think he just kind of, teetered off in the end. Yeah. But, I think that it's a great guy, ironically, for this reason only. If there was ever potential that AJ may end up giving Andy Ruiz a chance to have a third fight, this is the guy you want to model it after. Fast hands, slow, power puncher. A guy who's shorter, right? Smaller on the heavyweight side of things. And a guy who's going to come into that fight confident, knowing that he can do the job. Very, very similar to Andrew Ruiz. So if that fight is ever going to happen, this will be a good measuring stick for AJ. But like you said, it's a winnable fight. It's a fight I think that he wins by knockout between rounds 7 and 9 for me.
Wow. KO?
I think that he knocks him out. And I think the reason why he knocks him out is because Anthony showed in that fight against Andy Ruiz that he can fight a disciplined fight. He can use his strengths against guys that aren't as good as him from a skill standpoint. I think he keeps him on the back end of his jab. I think he moves around the ring on him and keeps him outside of holding him on the ropes. And I think that eventually he catches him coming in. Jermaine Franklin's going to have to commit at some point. And I think when he does that, AJ is a strong enough puncher to get him hurt and maybe not to necessarily knock him out cold, but I think he gets a TKO stoppage.
A stoppage. Okay. I appreciate you clarifying that because I was going to say I don't see him putting him down for a 10 count, but I can see a stoppage by damage. Just getting his hands off. Franklin is not replying like the ref prefers. And I can see a stoppage. Okay. Because my rebuttal was going to be, I think that based on the 3 fights that AJ's lost, he's become a little bit tentative with his hands. Now, we're not talking Browner tentative. We're just talking, I don't think his killer instinct is as strong as it was when he was earlier in his career. I don't think he's as confident in his KO power as he was. Because of that, I don't know that he can fully stop Franklin in this particular fight. However, if it's just the ref just sees like Franklin's not responding, he doesn't look good, he's looking a little crazy in the eyes, then I could definitely agree with that. Now let's go ahead and throw a little wild card into the mix.
Okay.
Trainer of the year 2022, Derrick James is in the picture.
Yeah.
As we understand it. Now, I think you have confirmation. I don't. But let's assume it's true. Let's assume it's true. That kind of changes my opinion of the fight, because I think that Derrick James is going to do a lot of things that are going to help set up Franklin to get KO'd. And if AJ can execute the game plan, it's going to happen. It might be a lot like when Jermell Charlo goes in the ring. As long as he does what Derrick James is saying, he seems to be really successful. And when he goes away from the script, he kind of be getting his ass touched up. I feel like AJ might fall into the same trap, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, man, I think that Derrick James is a really good trainer. I mean, beyond what people think, my opinion is of Errol Spence, right? People that talk to me or interact with me on social media know that I've been critical of Errol in recent years based on some of the things that have gone on with him. But people haven't also realized that I've been very, very complimentary of Jermell Charlo and what he's been able to do. So we're talking about a guy who trains with the same guy. I think that Derrick James is a really good guy when it comes to game planning. He's a very good guy when it comes to communication of what needs to be done or what needs to be changed mid-fight between rounds. And it's really, really good because he has a calming influence that I think AJ will respond well to. And in my opinion, I think really Jermaine Franklin is a guy who knows going into this fight that he's going to have to make something happen to show that he's the clear winner. And I think that that's going to play right into AJ's hands, because I think he's going to be more willing to take more chances. I think he's going to be more aggressive than he was in the Dillian White fight, knowing that, okay, if this fight goes to the cards, am I really going to get a decision over AJ? Is close, nip and tuck? Probably not, right? He's the house fighter. It's his home country. He's the money guy. They're probably not going to give me that fight. So I think he's going to play into AJ's hands. And I think that Derrick James is going to be able to come up with more than one game plan that works for AJ. And realistically, I think it's really just about getting AJ to not necessarily be a guy who's overly aggressive, but getting him to be a guy that chooses his spots when to attack. Corner, get the guy in the corner, throw combinations, and then step out and turn it. I don't think it has to be something where he becomes this pressure fighter all of a sudden and completely changes his style entirely. I think it's about small bursts and learning how to, conserve energy where he can, but also use his energy when he needs to attack.
I think just to complement what you're saying, I think that, like you said, the small bursts, which is going to use his energy efficiently, because he is a big dude. So he does have the probability of gassing out if he's too aggressive. But I think that you might see a little bit of a baby pivot game, and not like a crazy pivot game, just subtle footwork changes that are going to help his shots land more efficiently, which is going to get his opponent out of there quicker. Now, that's the one thing I feel like could potentially get the actual 10 count KO, but I agree with you, we'll probably see a stoppage. So, folks, we are going to leave it right there, and we're going to close on this particular topic. We love to get your input. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. This has been T. That's my boy Q. This is the Mic Check Podcast. Until the next time, we're out of here. Peace.